Liberal Joe Rogan is finally here, and they added a greasy pile of hair. Gavin Newsom launching a podcast to go toe-to-toe with MAGA.
We need to change the conversation, and that's why I'm launching a new podcast. And this is going to be anything but the ordinary politician podcast. I'm going to be talking to people directly that I disagree with, as well as people I look up to. Look, there's an onslaught of information that we take in, so let's take it to the sources without the typical political mumbo jumbo. In the first few weeks, we're going to be sitting down with some of the biggest leaders and architects in the MAGA movement.
Wow. Harold, this is so funny. How does this guy have the time to do this? It's not like California is running smoothly. They got fires, homelessness, drug addicts, crime. Oh, I'm going to start a podcast. We're going to start a conversation. Oh, there you go, Harold. Hey, let's have a conversation. How long do you think this podcast is going to last, Harold? Huh? He's going to run out of platitudes in 5 minutes. You know what? I don't want to hear from you, Harold.
You want me to talk now?
Yes.
So I agree with you. I don't understand how, in the middle of trying to manage an enormous state, if not the biggest state, sixth biggest economy in the world. But Gavin's a smart guy. He's got a lot of energy. I hope if he is able to pull it off, that what he does is really listen and have a lot of people on who don't necessarily agree with him. In fact, I would probably have the first 6 months people who didn't agree with me at all, and try to listen to them and understand them and counter a little bit where you can. But figure out why someone's life experiences that you think would lend themselves to supporting you didn't support you. And as opposed to demonizing people, or I'm not saying he would, but I think that's what the instinct might be. So I'm happy to hear he's doing what he's doing, but I don't disagree with your first thing, Greg. It seems like he has a lot on his plate as is. So I hope he doesn't spend too much time with this, because I think the real thing is to fix something, to repair something, to reform something, and to make life better for your constituents.
You know, Harold has changed my mind. I think this is a great idea.
Why?
When you think about it, it's like the problem with the Democrats is they can't listen to other people's ideas, and they're stuck in identity politics. And they don't understand the terrain of the podcast. They don't understand how to make their ideas last. Their ideas are built for a 12-person panel on CNN.
Okay.
Like, talk for 2 minutes and then say, let's have a conversation. Maybe this is the step out of identity politics where they try to explain themselves.
Okay, maybe. That could be. And I wrote down, like, what do you need for a good podcast? You need to be curious. You have to have authenticity. You have to have some humility. Not a lot of that going on. And you have to have some humor. Okay? Also, he has a terrible approval rating right now in California. He's not doing anything that would actually help him get the fact that everybody in California just voted against him on that reform bill, on the bail reform and the crime reform bill, the Prop 36. 70% of the state went against him on that. His own national appeal is limited. We talked about transparency in the first block. He is so transparent. The only reason he's doing this is because he wants to run for president in 2028.
Yeah.
And he thinks a podcast is the way to do it. And I have one other thing. So the graphics of the podcast, you pull those up, the light blue and the yellow, that's fresh. That looks good. Then cut to his backdrop and what it looks like. And he's in an olive green study, fake study, with a little lamp on the side. Like, honestly, what are you doing? That does not say fresh. That does not say new. That doesn't say anything, but maybe you want to be a psychiatrist.
Yeah, it's true. You know, it is funny. He's very ambitious. Whatever job he's doing, he's not doing it because he set his sights on the next job.
Yes.
See that when he was mayor of San Francisco, he was looking at governor. But would you go on? If he asked you, Jesse, would you go on?
No. He has to come on my show.
Ah.
And then I'm not out in California a lot. And when I am, I want a vacation. I don't want to work. I don't want to do a podcast. The downside for me is tremendous on that show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But, you know, compared to all these other Democratic politicians, he's doing better than they are. At least he's trying. He's trying to get out of that bubble.
Yes.
Because the road to the Democrat nomination is not through CNN, 60 Minutes. It's through Fox. He's going to have to do a Democrat primary debate on Fox News. He might actually have to do exclamation point.
Oh, yes.
He might actually have to do this show.
No.
He's going to have to do maybe
May not have
Rogan.
guests.
He's going to have to do Barstool. That old media game, like you were just saying, you 2 minutes and you're out, that game is done. That is deadly for Democrats. Look what happened with Kamala. She tried it. She failed. I just like the fact that at least he's accepting the fact that his game is over and he needs to try something new. The Democratic Party hasn't accepted that. So you're right. If you do a long-form interview, you have to dig deep on an issue.
Yeah, you can't say,
gotta
let's have a
study.
conversation.
You're right. You have to know the issue. And if you come on...
What's so wrong with that?
No, it's
No, that's
good.
I'm saying that he
usually
has a
Democrats
job.
don't do that. They go on 60 Minutes, they ask nothing, and then they edit it. So, or if you do my show, I will argue with you, or I'll just confront you, or I'll interrupt you, and it forces you to respond
Yeah.
honestly.
If you're doing a 2-hour podcast, Judge, about, let's say, men and women's sports, and he just goes, well, that's transphobic, then that's the end of the conversation.
Right.
You have to actually argue everything behind that.
Right.
You
And,
know?
the truth is that he's not a guy who goes that deep. He's too ideological, all right? It just stops right there with the ideology. Do you remember a couple weeks ago when the Democrats were looking for their own Joe Rogan? We did a segment on it, and they had these media moguls, and they were trying to figure out who should they put their money behind. Maybe they ended up with Gavin Newsom. You know, maybe they said, well, he's our guy. But, you know, the truth is that when he says things like, you know, as the reason I want to do this podcast is I want to understand where the MAGA people are coming from. I mean, how dumb is that? And the truth is that what he's trying to do is he's trying to be the #1 guy to run for president. And yet it's not possible right now because the Democrats are so locked into their identity politics that there isn't any room for discussion or dialogue or disagreement or, you know, they're just not capable of it. And finally, he already has a podcast. Did you know that?
No.
He already has a podcast. And now this is just like a rebranding. I think they should call it a fireside chat with Gavin.
Very good.
Okay. And finally, the people who are smart in the Democrat Party are people like Fetterman, who say, you know what, maybe we can do something together. You know, maybe we ought to listen to them. Gavin Newsom is all performative. There's nothing deep about him, and there's nothing about us. It's about him.
All right, but he does have great hair, Jesse. Look at that, huh? Nothing close. Up next, I Spy Creeps. Tulsi terminates sex jet perverts in the government.